Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the online time space of this year's hybrid edition of Mala Inventura, 19th volume of a showcase festival of Czech New Theatre. And on behalf of the festival, I would love to warmly invite you to the seminar session exploring Prague's funding landscape for local and international collaborations in the independent performing arts sector. The seminar is organized in the frame of the Pralin project, which since 2018 interconnects the independent performing arts communities between Prague and Berlin. Pralin is organized in partnership between Nová and Performing Arts Platform and Performing Arts Program Berlin, with kind support of Czech-German Fund of Future. So if you ever have any question related to Prague or Berlin art scene, do not hesitate to contact us. We would be happy to help you and support a possible collaboration with our networks and know-how. And you can find our emails on the pralin.org website or at the websites of Nová or Performing Arts Program Berlin. Now I would like to introduce Martina Pecková Černá, theater researcher, translator, and culture manager. Her sphere of interest covers contemporary drama, primarily written in German and Spanish, contemporary Czech theater, and culture policy of Central Europe. Since 2010, she is the head of the Department of the International Cooperation and Public Relations at the Arts and Theatre Institute. I'm happy that Martina will be our today's guide via the funding landscape of Czech independent art sector, which will hopefully help you to navigate through the spectrum of possibilities where to search for supporting your art-related activities. If you would have any question during the session, please send it to the YouTube stream live chat, and we will get to them by the end of the approximately 1 hour long session. So this is all of my short introduction, and I'm happy to pass the word to Martina.
So hello, everyone. Many thanks, Peter, for inviting me to this session. I hope that you will get some useful information from my presentation. Peter announced already that I work in the Arts and Theatre Institute in Prague, but before my engagement, I had been also active in independent theatre projects as translator or production manager or dramaturg. So I had some experience also with applications for funding. But my today's presentation will be rather an external eye into the whole topic because now I am employed in the state organization, so our funding schemes are a bit different. I will share with you PPT. I spoke with the organizers of today's talk that this presentation will be available after today's speak. So don't worry if you don't get all the numbers or funding schemes. You can always return to the presentation, ask the organizers to share it with you. Or there will be also a recording of today's talk available afterwards. So now I will start sharing my screen. So hopefully it works. Peter, could you just confirm?
Yeah, it works perfectly.
Okay, so perfect. So here we are. As we mentioned already, the Arts and Theatre Institute is a state contributory organization established by the Ministry of Culture, Czech Republic, and it's located in the very heart of the city of Prague. So it is very much connected with the culture scene in the city of Prague. The main mission is originally documentation of Czech theatre, but it deals also with other artistic branches. It promotes not only Czech performing arts, but also music abroad. And it serves also as an analytical body for the Ministry of Culture in case of some cultural policy topics and analysis. I am coming from the International Cooperation Department, which has the mission to promote Czech performing arts abroad. But one department of our institute is also the Czech Mobility Info Point, which provides information and consultation service for international collaboration. And it also published a useful tool for international collaboration, which is called the Culture Mobility Funding Guide. You can see here the cover of the 2018 edition and also the link where you can download it. Of course, that this guide was written in the pre-COVID times. And also I will mention some schemes and figures from the pre-COVID time, because of course we are still waiting for some annual reports for 2020, but also the last year is very special in implementation of projects in live arts due to the COVID pandemics and special measures which were introduced against the pandemic. So it's an extraordinary year, and maybe we will come back to this situation at the very end of this talk. So I will try to present what usually works in our country, but of course we are also aware of the situation that some schemes probably may change in the near future, and especially the figures which will be mentioned for support of mainly performing arts or arts will probably also drop in the upcoming years due to economic austerity, which probably will be somehow connected also with the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. So that's for the introduction. I should speak mainly about funding of independent performing arts projects and organizations. So I will mainly stick to this area, although I will mention also some other funding schemes to be able to compare also some of the numbers and figures which are included in my presentation. But also it's necessary to start with this general remark that all the funding scheme has developed mainly after the 1989 political and social changes in our country. Since the mid-1990s, the scheme of grant system has been developed, and there was also an important factor for international collaboration. In 2004, Czech Republic, together with other Eastern and Central European countries, accessed the European Union. So we became also regular members and beneficiaries of the European mechanisms. In the 1990s, the international collaboration was funded mainly through foreign culture organizations or foundations such as Open Society Fund or Pro Helvetia, or also, for example, the Goethe Institute funded a lot of collaborations and projects among Czech and German artists and culture workers. The main source of financing and funding independent sector in our country, in the Czech Republic, is the Ministry of Culture. Of course, it finances also state organizations. I mentioned the Arts and Theatre Institute where I work, but there are more state organizations such as National Theatre or Czech Philharmonic or National Gallery in Prague. But it provides also funding for not public organizations, mainly through the grant system, through the State Culture Fund of the Czech Republic, and in the field of cinema and audiovisual sector through the Czech Film Fund. So we will start to speak about the programs provided by the Ministry of Culture. And I will start right with professional theater projects. This funding scheme is open for organizations and individuals which are based in the Czech Republic. And this scheme has several strengths, such as festivals, shows, newly developed productions, year-round production development, and so on and so far. You can see it on my slide. It's an annual funding, so usually in autumn of the previous year, applicants can submit their projects, and at the beginning of the year, they know the financial contribution they will get for their projects. So that's for theater projects. And there is another strand for dance, physical and nonverbal theater, which is actually a very similar funding scheme, but especially for the discipline of dance and physical and nonverbal theater. Here you can find some figures. How was the funding in 2019? So for professional theater projects, 104 funded projects with the amount provided, which was around 46 billion Czech crowns. Here you have some approximate numbers also in euros, so that you can imagine how much money is it. And in the field of theater, the highest funding went to the theater magazines, where a year funding of one magazine was, for example, 90,000 euro. And the year-round production activities. So it means for activities of some organization which, for example, presented several theater productions during the year. So that was for theater. In dance, physical and nonverbal theater, there were less projects and less money. And highest funding went to the venues such as Ponec, the dance venue. Maybe you know it because also the Small Inventory Festival presents some shows in this venue, or to the Studio Alta. And here the explanation probably would be that we are still lacking infrastructure for modern dance and community projects, not only in the city of Prague, but also in other regions, and these venues got the highest support through the Ministry of Culture. Sometimes in case of special anniversaries or, I don't know, social or political topics, there are also special calls opened by the Ministry of Culture. In 2019, it was, for example, the special call 30 years of democracy and freedom, and 20th anniversary of NATO accession and 15th anniversary of EU accession in the Czech Republic, which we commemorated in 2019. So there was this special call which was open for all artistic disciplines, not only for theater or dance or performing arts. And there was a special allocation of 8 million Czech crowns for special projects related to these special topics. You can see at the bottom of this slide also, just for comparison, the state support for professional theaters, symphonic orchestra and choirs in 2019. This means that those are public organizations, mainly established by cities or regions. So it's the, let's say, stable theater network in the country, where the total funding of this whole mainly drama theater network was around 200 million Czech crowns. So that's just to compare how much went into public organizations and how much money went into independent organizations. The previous grant schemes I mentioned in theater and dance include also smaller festivals, but there is a special call for major festivals in the country. Again, it's for all artistic disciplines, so for classical music, alternative music, theater, dance, and physical theater, visual arts, and literature. Again, the beneficiaries are Czech-based cultural organizations, but there are special criteria for these major festivals or large-scale festivals. So not all festivals can apply in this very special call. For theater or performing arts, there are special criteria. The event must provide 5 previous editions, so it's not for new festivals. It must be minimum 4 days event with at least 10 productions. And the budget of the event should be at least 3 million Czech crowns. So this is the definition of what is called here large scale or major festivals. Again, I have some numbers for 2019. In theater, there were 5 funded festivals in this call with approximately 25 million Czech crowns. In dance, 3 funded festivals, the main dance festivals in the country with 10 million Czech crowns. And highest support in this scheme went to classical music, where the Ministry of Culture funded 8 festivals with almost 60 million Czech crowns. Total provided funding for all disciplines was 127 million Czech crowns. So that's another scheme of the Ministry of Culture. There is a special scheme for international collaboration provided again by the Ministry of Culture. Here, this funding is not designed for the production of artistic works itself, but for export activities mainly. So this scheme supports outgoing projects, again, in all artistic disciplines, so performing arts is included. And in 2019, the funding was 14 million Czech crowns. The advantage of this scheme is that the open call is published twice a year. So in case a production gets an invitation to a festival somewhere abroad, it's possible to be more flexible with applying for funding for such an event, and the ministry covers maximum 70% of the total costs of a guest performance or whatever kind of such an international collaboration. So that's for international collaboration. It's not the only scheme. There is also another special scheme for especially designed for the projects supported from the Creative Europe program of the European Union. Again, beneficiaries are Czech-based culture organizations. And there is a special way how to calculate the funding from the Ministry of Culture. So in case the applicant is main organizer of the project, he or she can get up to 25% from the co-financing total costs. If it's just a co-organizer or partner in the project, he or she can get up to 20% from the co-financing total costs in the project. This support and also all the other schemes I mentioned are provided on annual basis. So even in the case of Creative Europe projects, which usually are multi-annual projects, the applicant has to apply each year. He has to provide the budget for the activities just for the specific year, and he or she gets the funding. And again, next year, he or she must repeat her the application and all the procedure. In 2019, the total funding of Creative Europe projects from the Ministry of Culture was around 3 million Czech crowns. And you can say that 25 or 20% from the co-financing cost is not too much. Of course, it may be an obstacle mainly for main organizers of the projects if they don't have enough financial capacity to lead the projects, then it can be tricky for them to organize the European projects, but still we know that we are rather an exception in the Central and Eastern European countries and region with this special funding scheme for European projects, because we know that for example, in some Eastern European countries, there are no schemes like that, and it's very difficult, especially for independent organizations, to be part of European projects. The Ministry of Culture also has a special scholarship program for individual artists or researchers. Again, these scholarships are provided to all artistic disciplines. Here is an example how many people applied and were funded in 2019. So there were 4 new scholarships for dance and theater, but some of the scholarships can be longer than 1 year. So there was also some support for scholarships from previous years. The highest number here is in visual art. There are quite many also in music and not that many in dance and theater. There are some smaller incentives also provided by the Ministry of Culture and also the Czech Literature Fund. Here, probably these schemes are rather interesting for text-based theater, and they are connected with support for the publication of translated works for Czech publishers, or translations of original Czech literature for foreign publishers. So this is applicable maybe for someone who is interested, for example, to publish Czech plays in, I don't know, German or English translation. And the Czech Literature Fund has also a special scheme of funding for playwrights authors of TV scripts and radio plays, and some very modest scholarships for actors and dancers. For example, for 2 or 3 months, these scholarships are not very high, and for longer term activities, but still for specific projects, this scheme can also be used. The Ministry of Culture provides also special funding for artists in residence program, which is administered by our institute, the Arts and Theatre Institute. And it's for both, it's for incoming artists from other countries. Mainly these residencies are designed for visual artists and stage designers. The main place where these artists can spend their residency time is the Egon Schiele Center in Český Krumlov. And there are also subsidies for exchange residency program in different countries in the world for Czech artists, and yearly around 15 exchange stays for Czech artists abroad are financed from this scheme. I am slowly leaving the Ministry of Culture and its funding schemes, and but we are still at the state level because, as I mentioned, the Arts and Theatre Institute is a public organization established by the Ministry of Culture. So we also work with state budgets. And we have another special program which is designed with the goal not only to support international collaboration, but also professional growth of artists and cultural workers. It is called Go and See, short-term exploration grants. So beneficiaries are again individuals with permanent or temporary residence in the Czech Republic. The program is open again for almost all artistic disciplines except cinema. And this support is mainly for individual visits and study trips, for example, to festivals or important conferences or workshops, etc. The funding is allocated in the form of travel and accommodation contributions in case there are, for example, registrations fees, or someone who travels and is supported from this program can also cover, for example, tickets for performances or festival pass. So, and the funding in 2019 for all disciplines was 1.7 million Czech crowns, and we supported and administered 218 travels, which is a lot. So you can imagine that the funding is quite small, but it really depends on the destination of the applicant. So sometimes it's only about 500 euro if the applicant visits some festival in the neighboring countries. But there is also support for more expensive trips, for example, to Asia or to United States for some important professional gatherings or events. Another program of the Arts and Theatre Institute are the two programs administered by my Department of International Collaboration. It is promotion of Czech performing arts abroad and presentation of Czech performing arts at international markets and festivals. Again, you can see the examples of funding for these two programs in 2019. well, in case of international markets and festivals, we usually send Czech delegations to these important international events, or support, for example, if there are guest performances, we support financially these guest performances. In case of promotion of Czech performing arts abroad, the scope of activities is very broad, so it can be organization of events in the Czech Republic or abroad, formats like conferences, workshop, networking events, whatever kind you can imagine, with the goal to network representatives of current Czech performing arts with the international scene. And there are also some open calls published within this program. For example, open calls for organizers of events presenting Czech performing arts in Czech Republic and abroad. These a typical activity supported from this call is, for example, the Czech dance platform showcase or small inventory, and we don't support the production costs of the event itself, but usually we support the possibility to invite international guests and make it accessible for them. So translations, subtitling, accommodation costs related to the presence of international guests in these events are eligible. Or if in case there is a jury present at the festival or at the showcase, we cover the costs for the jury. So that's another example of support of international collaboration by the Arts and Theatre Institute. Still from the state level, but now we are leaving the territory of Ministry of Culture and moving to the territory of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which establishes the Czech Centers Network. It's a network similar to Goethe Institutes, but a much more modest one. We have only 27 Czech centers in the world. 2 of them are in Germany, 1 in Munich, 1 in Berlin. And again, these centers are designed to foster international collaboration among Czech culture scene and international scene. And they have also 2 programs. One of them is Artists in Residence program. And another one is, again, support for curatorial and journalistic trips of foreign curators and journalists to events in the Czech Republic. That's it, probably for the state level, and we will now check the schemes on the regional level. I have to start with the capital city of Prague, which is a bit extraordinary example because Prague is it is a city, it is the capital of Czech Republic, but also in the structure of the Czech Republic as a state, it's also a region. So it's also extraordinary with funding figures for culture. And of course, it has its own grant system. I think that here, in the case of the city of Prague, it will be very valid what I said at the beginning, because here I present something what is valid up to this year. But the city is now changing the grant system, so the criteria will change a bit from the beginning of next year. but it's not published yet. It's in preparation, so I cannot present right now what will be exactly the changes. But basically, of course, there is a special call for performing arts, for projects implemented within the capital city of Prague, and for production of artistic works. If we check the figures from 2019, you will see that there were a lot of money invested into culture. In general, there were 477 projects, one-year-round projects, and 74 multi-annual projects supported with 333 billions. And below you can see the figures for theater and dance. Theater usually is the most funded discipline by the city of Prague, not only in the grand scheme for theater, but also in the form of the city culture organizations. The city of Prague has 17 organizations and 10 of them are theaters. And at the bottom of this slide, you can see really a huge figure which represents the funding for city theaters in the year 2019. For 2021, there was announced that the financial allocation should be 360 million Czech crowns, but due to COVID-19, there is a decrease, and there is a decrease also for already for the projects which are in operation right now. So here is something what I announced at the very beginning too, that all these figures are pre-COVID figures, and we can expect probably in all the grant schemes some dropping of the budgets. Another example is the city of Brno. Here you can see quite different figures, but we are already really on the level of a city, of a municipality, which has its own funding program for culture. There is a special strand for theater performance and new circus. An interesting condition for funding for organizations or nature persons is that they have to work for minimum 2 years. So it's not for completely new organizations and projects. And financial allocation in 2021 is 3.6 million Czech crowns. They have also a special strand for dance, and there are very similar conditions, and in comparison to theater, it's half of the budget for dance. Maybe you are surprised that I haven't mentioned any regional mechanism for funding of culture. This is usually the weakest part of the whole funding structure in the Czech Republic. So the most money goes from the state level. Then quite high numbers you can find also in the case of the cities. The regions, they have usually general calls for culture, so there is no special strand for theater or dance. Here you can see some examples. I chose one from the west of the country, from the Pilsen region, and one from the Moravian region, Vysočina region. So here you can see some allocations for 2021 for grant systems for culture. Here are two mechanisms which are may be familiar to you. The Czech-German Fund for the Future, which has been established mainly for Czech and German participation and collaboration. Maybe I don't talk too much about this funding because it's probably known, or we can get back to some personal experience with Peter after my talk. And there is another special funding for regional collaboration, which is the International Visegrad Fund, established in the year 2000 by the governments of the Visegrad Group countries, Czechia, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia. This fund is funding culture projects, and it has also some special mobility and residency schemes. And the main scope is regional collaboration in the V4 countries, but there is also special attention paid to the region of Western Balkans and Eastern Partnership countries. So it's again a very useful tool for regional collaboration. With private foundations or other funding, it's very changeable ambience. There are many residency opportunities in our country. So I chose an example of the Prague Meat Factory Cultural Center. It's just one example out of many which are possible to use in our country. And then as the last scheme, I would like to mention the foundation of Josef, Marie and Zdeněk Hlavka, which supports highly talented and creative students and young artists up to 33 years of age for their scientific or artistic projects and scholarships for study trips to foreign countries. So that's it. That's just a brief overview. Thank you for your attention. I will be glad to answer your questions or comments if there are any, and if I know the answer, I will stop the presentation here and get back to Peter or to the questions which appeared.
Thank you, Martina, for this journey. There is one question from Karolina Vratna, so I will read it. Is it possible to apply for more than 1 year, like 2 or more years at Ministry of Culture or the City of Prague? Mm-hmm. And if yes, which program it is? And is it open for all EU citizens who are resident in Czech Republic?
For the Ministry of Culture, no. There are no multi-annual grant schemes. It's a very discussed topic, but unfortunately there is no such mechanism. So there is no possibility to apply. Even I mentioned, for example, the European projects where it would make sense to get funding for the whole project implementation period, but it's not possible. You only can apply on annual basis. So that's the Ministry of Culture. City of Prague has a special program for multi-annual funding. It's up to 4 years, if I'm right. So it's possible. Also, therefore, it's difficult to calculate how much money was allocated for grant subsidies each year, because always you have a mix of new projects and newly started projects and the projects which were supported already in the previous years, and they continue their financing. in the current year. So that's the city of Prague. And then there was another part of the question with the residency, or?
Yeah, if it is open for all EU citizens who are resident in Czech Republic.
I think I'm not sure. I would have to check exactly, but I think that the Czech permanent residency is usually the obligation. Mm-hmm.
Or like a Czech-based foundation,
yes.
right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I hope, Carolina, this answered your question. We can wait like a few more seconds. If there is any more question, we are a little bit delayed on the YouTube. So
okay.
we can take like a small break. But if nothing comes, I would like to thank you, Martina, for the insight you provided. And well, there comes another question from Carolina. When you know the results of the grants in advance?
So the grants from the Ministry of Culture, usually the results are announced in February, sometimes in March, especially this year is a bit difficult because we know that dance jury decided already, but the theater jury will assess the project only at the beginning of March. So usually it has also impact on the calendar of events in our country. I would say that small inventory is very exceptional with the date because it's taking place in January, where usually it's very unsure. The organizations are not sure about the funding yet. But then you can see that many events, not only festivals, but also openings are taking place in April, May, and June. So it causes a bit difficulties in planning. So yeah, that's a tricky part of funding here in the country. Peter knows probably very well this situation.
Yeah. And I'm also like very thanking Mala Inventura for like doing this dance
yes,
of knives.
I think that here usually the way how to overcome this problem is to have international funding, to be part of international projects where you can be sure that you have some cash flow to overcome this period of uncertainty about the funding. In the case of the grants from the city of Prague, I think it's the situation is better. Also, the application deadline is much earlier. Usually, it is also already in spring. While the application deadline for the Ministry of Culture is in autumn. So this makes the whole procedure of project assessment a bit longer. And yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess since I don't see any more questions on the YouTube.
Do you want to mention yet, Peter, something about the last year situation? Maybe we should mention yet a couple of mechanisms which were developed as a direct reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you wish.
I think if you can tell a little bit about it, because then it also tells a little bit how the system is able or unable to react on what is needed in the scene.
Again, generally, I would say that very positive approach by the Ministry of Culture was the fact that it got special funding for the last year for the cultural sector. And it was in the first phase, it was 1 billion of Czech crowns, and some 40%, a bit more even, went into independent sector. So there were special calls and programs for independent organizations to get help during last year. And a part of this funding was a special call for online access to live productions. So it was mainly for performing arts and music. So there was a special call for such productions. And there was, and already in more calls, not only one, there was a special program called COVID Culture, which was designed for commercial organizations and freelance artists. So it was a special help for, again, the commercial sector and freelance artists in culture, which were not able to execute their professions and their activities last year. And this program continues also this year. It's refined. We know that there were several troubles with these programs because the conditions had to be refined already during last year, because at the very beginning it was too strict, and the money which was allocated for these programs was not used. So the calls repeated with changed conditions. And I think it was a great opportunity also to conduct an intense dialogue with the state administration about the whole funding system. And of course, it's nothing positive, the whole pandemics, but something a bit positive was this dialogue and this beginning of hopefully refining the whole system so that it can provide better conditions for, especially for independent cultural organizations.
Yeah, I really hope that this dialogue will last. I think it was also like the first year that I kind of could feel that there is some care from the funding structures to make the people survive, which was nice to feel this. So hopefully this will last, and yeah, that we won't be going back to normal, but rather strive to establish new normalities in which such dialogues would be present. And I think since, yeah, and I guess we could end it at this point, since we are also coming for this 1 hour limitation, and it's nice also not to keep people so long by the screens, and since there is like a little bit of the sun coming here, at least here in Prague 7. So Martina, I would like to thank you very much for your insight and for sharing your expertise. And also I would like to thank everyone from Nová and Performing Arts Program Berlin and Malá Inventura to make this session possible. If you are interested in more activities between Prague and Berlin, follow our websites, and hopefully in May we will organize a delegation for Performing Arts Festival in Berlin. And in September, we hopefully will be able to host a small showcase of Berlin artists in Prague, which will be part of the next edition of Culture Get Together, a symposium of the Czech performing arts community. And last but not least, I would like to invite you warmly to participate on other online formats of Malá Inventura, which are streamed regularly every day on the YouTube channel. So this is all. Please take care, and I wish you a nice afternoon. May you spend it within the festival online programming or with anything else.
Thank you very much and enjoy the festival. Bye-bye.
Ciao.